to SpeakuP Monday here, Tropical Nomad. Every Monday, 6:30 we go live. By the way, 6 o'clock, come be part of the studio audience. Studio audience, are you there? You've got to be part of the studio. It's so much more fun than watching it otherwise. So today we're talking about the future of health. My name's Robert Ian Bonnick. I'm the tourism architect. Now today has been a very special journey with me and this wonderful lady here, Tracy G from Health Hub Bali. And before we introduce everybody, now over the next 3 episodes, which will be over consecutive months, meaning this one is the first week of May, the next one the first week of June, next one the first week of July. And we'll be exploring the future of health, the different elements that go to make that up. Today's episode is all about, there's always a panel of experts. It's all about, where are we currently? How do we reach this point? Why is it that for the last 50 years we've learned nothing or learned everything? Why is it that our health is suffering when it doesn't need to? How can we make things simple for people to understand, to reclaim their health and reclaim the power that they have within to control their own health? So that's what today is really about. So to get us started, I think what we'll do is that we'll start off by introducing our panel. And the way that we'll do that is, maybe spend a minute or two for each person. We'll start with Sequoia, and we'll work our way this way. And actually, Tracy, I think we'll start with you. Are you okay with that? Good. We'll start with Sequoia. And so what you'll get the sense of is, where their speciality lies, how they fit into this whole picture of whole health, and Health Hub Bali, which we'll go into in a minute, which again is what Trace is about, and that's what this collaboration is about. And Health Hub Bali, I've been going for a very long time now, and the way I refer to Health Hub Bali actually is, we have all of these breadcrumbs of health. Breadcrumbs can be different modalities, different specialists, different experts. What Health Hub Bali is doing is bringing all these breadcrumbs together to make a beautiful pie. So let's start off with you, Brother Sequoia. If you just introduce yourself so we can get a sense of who you are and why you're here.
My name is check. Does it work?
Yeah, the microphone's working great. Okay. We'll just turn up the speaker volume so others can hear it outside.
So my name is Sequoia Liddell Velez. I'm American. I've been living in Vienna, Austria for almost 10 years. And my field is in microbiology. So I have a vast amount of research in microbiology. The gut microbes is what I specifically focus on. And nutrition, as well as I'm a clinical herbalist making plant medicine for people to find different ways to help people really heal based on the gut microbes. I'm here in Bali because Bali offers a vast amount of different microbes all over it, a huge ecosystem that's really important for the human body as well. And so this is where I really see that nature and the human body can really align with one another when you have a vast amount of microbiology within the ecosystem of where you are, the environment.
Wonderful. Thank you, brother. So, Tracy, we'll give that one to you, and we'll do you last. So, we'll switch across now. So, we should say ladies first, but I'm looking at the guys here. So, we'll end with the ladies. How about that? So, Ian, maybe just a minute or so just about you for those who don't know who you are.
So I'm Ian Mcleod. I'm a co-founder of a fitness facility or health facility here called Nirvana Strength. We focus a lot on ancestral lifestyle, ancestral nutrition, the idea of kind of taking everything back to our roots, right, and trying to reconnect ourselves more with how nature kind of intended us to live. And this is something that we'll go into a little bit more detail, but we try to use modern technologies and modern advancements to help supplement and assist our lives as opposed to using them as a primary component of living a better life. And so as we get into this discussion even a bit more, you'll see that there's kind of whole array of possibilities that have kind of escaped us because we've become kind of blinded by modern life and modern technologies. And just by bringing us back to more in alignment with nature, we're actually able to behave and perform more optimally.
Wonderful. And Janet, just before we get to you, for those of you watching on Instagram Live, the best experience of watching this in audio and visual is through YouTube. Now, Itchy, I think, has dropped the link into that Instagram Live. So make sure you click on that. So YouTube Live or Facebook Live is the best way to watch this. You get a much better clarity of audio and of visuals. So Janet, over to you, my dear.
Hello, everyone. My name's Janet Hogan. I'm based in Bali. Have you ever had a headache or some kind of physical symptom and you thought, maybe it's not about what I had to eat or drink, maybe it's not my environment, maybe it's actually something within me, something that I haven't quite resolved? So what I do is I help people access their unconscious self so that you can bring that to the surface and have a better understanding of whatever is the root cause of what's showing up as some kind of physical symptom. So that's what I do, and I'll talk about it more as we get going.
And that technique that you've established, that you've founded, what's it called?
So my program is called The Fifth Door, but the signature program, if you like, is called Pain to Passion. So it's really about taking you from your pain, whatever that pain is, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, to a place where your energy, your passion is released, and you can actually start tapping into your true self. But often the physical symptom is the biggest clue we get that there's something wrong. So that's where I take a dive in.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Janet. So if we pass this one to Tracy. So Tracy, now, for those of you who don't know Tracy G, she's a person who's been around for a long time in Bali, a long time in Australia, has been bringing this Health Hub Bali together for many, many, many years, but is someone who I find that isn't out there enough. Not enough people know the work that she's doing, and this is a really big driver for why this came together, because I love what she does, and I think it's very important right now that this type of work gets out and is spread to the everyday person. Okay, so Tracy, if you give us maybe just a quick background on you, and then we can frame what Health Hub Bali does.
So which part?
So now we're going to the personal side of Tracy, the background.
Okay, so I've been here, say, 10 years or close to 10 years in Bali. I said originally, if I was back in Australia, I said I'm setting up a health tourism model here. And what it was, originally in Australia, I was working with Business Women's Network, mainly putting together programs or connecting people to information and raising awareness about the fact that there's other modalities that they may not have known about. The modalities were mainly in concern because there's so much cancer. I was coming across a lot of cancer with males, 1 in 2 and 1 in 3 females. And for in my world, I didn't think that was necessary. To the point that as a rule, talking to each one, there was a trauma response or some major trauma or sustained stress that the individuals were dealing with that nobody was talking about. So that's actually where I started. Then later on, eventually, what arose was the fact that if we have pathogens in our body, we can't heal. So the combination of the what would we call the emotions and our physiology, that was the issue. So this was the kind of information connecting people to practitioners and clinics that knew about this, but there were certain gaps that they didn't really understand. So then I would guide them what testing they need, what they needed to do, and what education would actually match them. So now in the world today, like a decade or 15 years later, we're talking about epigenetics, we're talking about fasting, we're talking about functional medicine. So I am trained in functional medicine, I'm trained in a lot of the somatic work, psych work, things like that as well, but I'm mainly just sharing with practitioners, clinics and patients.
Right. And then so this journey about whole health being backed by science,
yes,
is at the fundamental core of Health Hub Bali. So maybe you take a couple of minutes to explain what that looks like.
All right. So where we start with is the fact that the body is designed to heal. If you scratch yourself, you will heal, but something happens later on. We're all different, and we've got big diseases that are happening. So there's a word called, in English we say homeostasis, or self-regulating system naturally in the body. So something's out of sync. So this is where we have a pathway. We go back to our endocrine, our nervous system being in balance and calm. And that's one way we can start recentering, that our body can start doing what it needs to do. But these things are not talked about, they're not learned about from little, and usually we just panic, people get a diagnosis, next minute they've got a couple months to live, and they're the type of people I'm seeing. And they're told nothing, they've got no option. So I'm saying when there is no option, what next? So this is what this is about. We want proper testing, and then we can connect them with doctors, and, you know, it could be a dentist, it could be their structure. We want to find out what's causing it.
So this whole health model, you know, which is part of what Health Hub Bali stands for, is, as you said, it's about connecting the dots. It's about providing the best client pathways, client journeys for their specific, I guess, not disease, but whatever they're suffering from at that moment, and selecting the best specialists and the best treatment programs for that to basically happen. And so why is Bali one of the best places in the world for this to happen?
What could we say? It's also the environment. Often our disease is from the environment we're in. So I say, if you can get out of wherever you are, come here, where you can rely on the idea with Health Hub as a rule. People not necessarily have come for medical or treatments here in Bali because of a trust issue with science, but that's what Health Hub we'd like to do. We can direct them to where they can get testing and get a number and get like a bird's eye view what's happening, and from that space in a relaxed state they can focus on that, and we can see what's actually causing their issues. And once again, we're going from the gut, the mental, the structure. We're doing whole health and clinical as well.
Okay, so this is whole health backed by science, right? Which is great. So I know that more will come up as we go. I know that also Health Hub Bali is a certification like layer to it that will help to empower many other professionals which are also living here in Bali. But we'll get onto that later. But the question to start us off is, you know, like, for each of you, and we'll probably start in reverse order, which I think means that way, right? Well, we're Tracy, but she's already talking. We're going to someone else. So where we are now, I think few would argue that, you know, we're in a bit of a crisis when it comes to our own health. So then the question that I would ask each of you, you know, starting with Sequoia, is, in your opinion, you know, why are we where we are now? And what factors do you think have been important over the last 50 years or more, which have caused us to be exactly where we find ourselves now?
Actually, I want to piggyback off of what Ian shared earlier, if you don't mind sharing why we are where we are right now, Ian.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah, so you see that was a delicate little handball. Did you guys see that? It's like a little assist. That was nice.
Yeah, it was great.
I guess yeah. I mean, if this is what you're bringing attention to, so the idea is that, I mean, this obviously this 2 years of the pandemic has been a big eye-opener for a lot of people, or maybe for some not so much. But if we look at historically, maybe in the last 50 years, how we've kind of developed as humans, we have an entire medical system that's based off of treating acute problems. So, I mean, maybe many of you have had pain or some kind of problem. You go to the doctor. If it's a physical injury or something like that, they'll basically tell you not to do it anymore, whatever it was, and then give you some kind of pill to treat your pain or your headache, or you know, something that's very quick to kind of deal with the problem, but not actually dealing with the problem in itself, right? You have like, I'm from the United States. Before the pandemic, we're at an 80% overweight, obese, morbidly obese rate in the States, and this is like, actually, it's becoming more normal, right? In the Middle East, you see it a lot. Australia, you see it a lot. A lot of UK, you see it a lot as well. So you have a lot of these, like top 5 killers in the world are cardiovascular disease related. So you have all these like core morbidities and all these problems that people are having. And this is all lifestyle stuff, right? It's like 89% of all the things that we could do to kind of get better really has nothing to do with the medical industry. It's like, you need to sleep better, you need to eat better, you need to exercise, And so like the big thing that we really focus on from the physical perspective is joint health. Is like getting knee replacements and hip replacements have become normalized in America. People are at the age of 45 and they're just expecting to get hip replacements because their family has a history of getting hip replacements. So if we go into sociology, it's like a really weird concept. It's like if 5 of the people around me have all got hip replacements, it's just like, it's just normal. I'm going to get hip replacement too, which is kind of odd. You know, it's like these are not things that should be normalized. And so you see it with almost in every aspect of life. I think Sequoia's going to hit on some gut microbiome things that I think are very quite interesting. And so we think about the most basic, simple things that we can do. Again, going back to nature, going back to this ancestral way of living is going to be something that's going to be beneficial for your entire life, right? So we've done a fantastic job of allowing ourselves to be able to survive until we're like 100. But usually by the time we get there, we're kind of really in bad shape. And so we'd like to maybe get to those really high ages, but also still be able to function as well or even better than maybe what you are right now. I think that's kind of the end goal.
Yeah, and so what I want to piggyback off of is when you talked about lifestyle, because a lot of us, we forget that it's really about nutrition, and that's what we're really learning about, is that there's so much that's happening in our gut. Our gut is 80% responsible for our entire immune system, and this is really, really key when we start to put medicine in our bodies, and it's not that medicine is particularly a bad thing whenever you need it, but we find that medicine, for example, is like an atomic bomb to the gut, and your body has to repopulate a lot of those microbes that end up missing. A large part of it has to do with the microbiome research that's coming out over the last years, which says once you reach over a certain age, like 40, for example, most people, and we don't know why, are losing over 50% of their gut bacteria. And this gut bacteria is responsible for protecting the entire immune system. And so this is why we've seen over the last years with COVID, for example, that a lot of people over a certain age were actually losing their lives. And it's because of, obviously, their health, but also because they were losing a lot of that gut bacteria that's protecting their immune system. And so you've seen with the younger individuals that they were really, really safe. So what we're really finding out over the last 50 years is that it's not just health, that it's not just taking care of ourselves, but it's kind of in sync with the planet, with the way that we're treating the rice fields, with the way that we're treating the farms, and all of these things that are also going back into our body. We see that not only destroying the immune system, but also destroying the immune system of the planet, if you will.
Great. And, you know, there'll be some people here, again, as I mentioned, part of my role is to keep everybody together, right, so no one gets lost. So remember, if you're here in the audience, if there's something that you don't understand, just raise that hand. So people talk about this gut-brain connection, but perhaps there's some people here who don't understand the importance of it. So if you could maybe spend a minute or so just explaining what is meant by this gut-brain connection and why, therefore, that biome, apart from protecting the immune system, is so important when it comes to health.
Sure. So when we look at the gut, we have 90% of serotonin, which is responsible for creating happiness, that's produced inside of the gut. And so we see a lot of things that's associated also with mental health and mental well-being. This is also due to what we put into our bodies in general. And what we can see is that anywhere we travel in the world, whether that be Bali, whether that be another part of Indonesia, Mexico, just eating something or drinking something as simple as water can have a huge impact on the shifts of your gut microbiome. And this can be good because it could increase the biodiversity. Biodiversity meaning the amount of different strains of bacteria that's in the gut that's able to play around with one another can increase your lifespan. And this is what's really important. We see when it comes to fitness, for example, the more fitness, the more cardio that you do, you can increase a specific gut bacteria that can be passed down. For example, women tend to pass the gut microbes onto their children once they give birth, and that is actually predicated on the child's health as well. And so there's a huge there's a huge amount of knowledge that we're learning right now when it comes to the gut bacteria, but this is just the basic of why the gut bacteria is really important with the gut-brain connection.
Great, thank you very much indeed. So Ian, if you could hand that microphone to Janet. So Janet, same question to you. You know, the last 50 years or so, you know, why are we in the place that we are? What has caused it? What were the markers? What were the causal factors?
Ooh, I love getting into this. Has anyone seen that excellent mini-series Dope Sick, starring Michael Keaton, about addiction to OxyContin? So basically, that's an opioid that doctors have been prescribing legally to people who came to them complaining of some kind of pain, you know, neck ache, headache, backache, you know, quite a serious pain. The problem was it's very, very addictive. And so what that's resulted in is more deaths from this particular drug that was totally legally prescribed than COVID in the US. So this, I believe, represents the pinnacle of what's wrong with the system, that we've got to a place where not just the doctors, we thought the doctors were in charge, but there's a layer above them, and that's the need for drug companies to make a profit. So why is that so bad? Because it's not always acting in our best interests, but I think even worse than that, it's taken the control of our own bodies away from ourselves and to big business. And when that happens, it's basically a slippery slope down to, is the intention to really get humanity better, or is the intention to get humanity in a state of constant sickness where we're constantly buying drugs? And if it's the latter, then that's something that we really have to pay good attention to and wake up to. So I think a few years ago, my dad was a doctor. He was an ear, nose and throat specialist and finally just specialised in otology. And in his day, the doctor was king. Now I see the drug companies as having even more power than the doctor. And the problem with that is that we've lost contact with ourselves. We've lost the inability to read our body symptoms. Our body is talking to us all the time, but we seem to be blind and deaf to what it's trying to tell us.
Wonderful. And that one can go to Ian. So remember, if you're watching on Instagram Live, please go to YouTube Live. Ichi will drop a link in there so you can be directed to the best sound and audio quality. So then, sound and vision. There you go, audio visual. So Tracy, same question, you know. So when it comes to, you know, the last 50 years, and I guess this kind of comes back to why you're here. You know, what would you say, you know, has been happening, and why are we in the place that we are?
Probably the difference is what happened with medicine, whether it's 50 years or 70 years ago when the first medical schools were set up.
No, just check. Can everybody hear? No.
In the last 50 or 70 years, what's the difference? What you could probably see is the universities or the medical schools, med schools. And the way it's what we in, I don't know, I use a word called Cartesian model, meaning it's all separated. So if there's some issue, you go here, you go there. The doctors themselves, when they went or have gone into medicine, they usually had a reason. And if they're coming from a place they actually wanted to help people, do the Hippocrates thing of first do no harm, that power has often been taken off them. So the whole health, we don't operate separately from our liver, our kidney, our lymphatics, etc. So their training has been all separate, and the tools to heal that they're given is really just pharmaceutical. And so to show a map, what we call whole health, what I found recently or in the last decade is the emotion that comes up in these doctors when they see that. They go, this is why they went into medicine, and it's whole health. We're addressing all the different symptoms. There's a logical way, functional medicine, integrating things. We don't ignore science, we use that tool, but we want the body to heal. And that's what they're... So prior to the universities being set up, you would have found in the village there was a doctor who knew everyone in the village. He knew what they were going through. He would use both. They'd use some chemicals from the compounding chemist, or they'd use natural things, and they'd often just tell them, you know, to go off and play or do something to be happy to heal. But if there was an issue later on, like I said, within when they did have to use pharmaceuticals, it was still whole health in the early time. So at the time when science became quite strong in the early part of the century, what came up with their understanding the physicists, the things I couldn't say, like ozone, Rife machines, understanding frequency, all this knowledge. That's when it started Tesla's work. But the moment the universities, that was kind of squashed and was not part of mainstream medicine. So that could have something to do with it. So with Health Hub, what we're doing is we're bringing that together. We're integrating it, but we're addressing the whole health. So if something's wrong with somebody, they've gone to a doctor, they've got, say, cancer, and it might be in a certain part of the body. What I found sitting on Zoom sessions with them, the doctor suddenly can't talk about another part because it's not his specialty. So the patient's left there going, what am I meant to do? Because he needs that bit of information. You understand? So then he's got to make another appointment with another doctor. It's all separated.
So just want a quick show of hands. So has anyone here felt that? So, they've been to a doctor and there's something that you're feeling, and, you've realised that doctor wasn't really in the place to be able to solve the whole issue. Just a quick raise your hands. Okay. Yeah, that's about, for those people not here, it's about 80% of the audience, far out. So that's a lot. So that tells you something. And then what else is coming up for you on this topic that you want to share?
Well, people don't have time and money to go around and look for these ones. So that's hence the Health Hub. And even in a country, there's usually somebody that that's their specialty, they love, understand, something about bloods and different strands. So after a while, what we've collated or we're bringing together are these experts through the world. They might be over there. Especially the last 2 years with telemedicine, we can contact them. We can drill down a bit. That's one part of it. The last 50 years, a lot of it now is the food has changed the last 50 years. So the toxins, the sugars, processed foods. The first thing we do is just clean people out before we do anything. I'll call it radical well-being. We need and that's why Bali's nice for that. We can clean that out, whether it's a good thing or not, just in 1 week. And then after that, we can start checking in. But we can't build on something when there's so much junk in the gut. Mm.
So then what you're saying, as you mentioned earlier, is that the body knows how to heal itself.
Yes.
But we need to get out of the way. And so then when someone comes to you, one of the first things you look to do is how can we clean out this person to let those systems begin to come in and take control, which it knows to the homeostatic mechanism that you just mentioned before. Yeah. So just want to, because I know, Sequoia, you were talking before about the soil. So I think that might be relevant to this topic. So maybe just quickly go into the soil, and because Tracy mentioned that the food that we've been consuming has changed over this past 50 years. So how would you approach that from a soil biome point of view?
So what we're experiencing right now, for example, in the United States, or actually worldwide, is we start to hear a lot about it now, and this is in regards to a lot of the nutrients in the food aren't there anymore because we've over-farmed the soil, and so the food, this has become quite a bit of a problem. And it's even more a problem when we start adding specific vitamins to food, because when we eat fruits and vegetables, what happens to our body is that our body knows how to filter out the perfect amount of nutrients and vitamins from that specific fruit or vegetable. And when we're adding these vitamins and nutrients to the food, our body doesn't know how to filter that out properly. So no matter what we're putting in, whatever processed foods or whatever it is that's in the freezer section, a lot of it is going directly into our body, and it's causing our body, too much of one thing can be a bad thing. And so we're starting to see that a lot just from the farming industry that's really changing. And so I think one of the solutions is that we have to, unfortunately, get better with farming. We have to be smart with the way that we work with the soil. And that's going to have a huge benefit for the human body in general. But I'd say just when you look at health, and you start trying to take in the best things that you feel is good for your body, then that's a good thing, because we're seeing a lot of these soil microbes start to disappear, and then we're losing that same biodiversity inside of our bodies. And so looking at certain things like organic, of course, it can be quite difficult for some people because organic can be quite expensive. But dealing directly with a farmer, if you can, is also a great way of just making sure that farm source directly to you has enough diversity than it would by traveling from different location to location.
Got it. And so I just want to pick up with Ian, actually. So we spoke about before about functional medicine, and I know that you study the functional way as well. And the one thing that interested me was, again, I like to make things simple for people, even though Tracy tells you the answer isn't always simple, but I tried to make it as simple as we possibly can. So you were saying before about this, it struck me, right? So I'm a tall guy, but you were saying before how the shoulder mobility, for example, we're talking about how this thing was caused. So this is the section that we're on, that's why it's relevant. So the difference between a tall person and a short person, and then bringing that into just our functional way of being, what have you noticed? Because I think it's important for these guys to be aware of it.
Yeah, so I'll definitely hit on that point. But I guess as I talk, I'd like you guys just to kind of even think about if you've had any like shoulder problems, elbows, knees, ankles. I mean, just like any joint you can think of. Like, do you have any problems in and around that area? And so when it comes to like lifestyle, the basic idea that a short person would theoretically have better shoulder mobility or shoulder flexibility than a tall person would through lifestyle, right? And so you think of it like, if you're a really tall person, taller than me, how often would you actually reach above your head to grab, I don't know, that jar of cookies, right? Whereas if you're a short person, it's like you got to do a lot to get to that point. You're going to raise your arms up really high, and you're probably going to do that quite often, especially if you love sweets. And so then that shorter person is going to just generally have better shoulder mobility than a taller person. And this is a very generalization, but the idea, and this is also too, is like you think of like East Asians. I'm half Korean, and if you go to Korea, it's like you'll see a lot of Koreans just sitting on the side of the road in a full squat, just like smoking cigarettes. And it's just like, it's a normal resting position for them. Where you see a lot of people, especially those that spend a lot of time in the office, sitting in chairs, it's like they can't go past 9 degrees because they spend their entire life in that position. And so a lot of us, we just accumulate tension in our bodies. Like almost everybody, and a large percentage, I would guess, is just through some basic, like simple, like tension release techniques, is like you can actually get rid of a lot of your knee pains, ankle pains, whatever pains you have, you can get rid of a lot of it. Now, for short term, like it will help release a lot of that pain and tension, but you have to combine it with properly understanding and making adjustments to your lifestyle. Because you can take a pill or you can do something in the short term to help address the issue, but in the long term, it's never actually going to get better if you don't actually make the life changes. And so it's the same thing with the gut health, with your mental health, whatever it might be. And on a greater level, it's like if you understand the basic idea that the body responds to stress or the lack of stress. So if you stress the body in a particular way, it's going to adapt, get stronger, and then you just keep repeatedly doing that. Or you don't do anything. Has anybody seen the movie WALL-E? WALL-E, there's that scene where it's like they're all just basically in the chair, and there was like a scene where they like x-rayed someone's body and they have like no bones. And it's like the bones have just disappeared. And it's like if you don't, I mean, to a certain extent, it's like there's certain things, if you don't use it, you kind of like lose it, right? And so if you don't use a certain range of motion, your body loses that range of motion. If you've experienced a trauma of some kind, like a motorbike accident, whatever, it's like you have a trauma there that your body knows that is very painful or and anyways, it doesn't want to revisit that position anymore. So then it restricts your movement by creating a lot of tension, or it sends pain signals. Another really quick example would be like nerve damage. A lot of people have like numbing or tingling in the hands or in the legs. Sciatica is a really big problem. Nerve damage in the hands really a big problem. But actually, a lot of it is just tension. Let's say a quick fix. Next time you go suntanning and you lie on your stomach, have it at a slight incline, and just do that. And it will fix a lot of people's sciatica problems. Just something simple as that. Releasing tension in the forearms is going to help you release any kind of nerve like pain that you might have in your hands. But this is like a quick 5-10 minute fix, and it's just like quick tension release. I'm not selling you pills or trying to make you spend a shit ton of money on something that doesn't really like deal with the actual problem, right? So
I would love to get, for people here also to leave with some practical tips tonight as well, right? Because it's about giving value. And I know we've got 3 of these, and this one is predominantly about how we arrive where we have now. But it'd be great to give some solutions as well, so people can actually leave with things that they can actually try out. So Nirvana Strength, incredible gym. So you mentioned before about people seeing other. This is more of a bird's eye view on the industry.
Yeah.
That a lot of people have seen other people, but they haven't got to the source of what the problem is. And you've just mentioned that for 80% of people, maybe that much, maybe less. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But just being able just to loosen those areas of the body, then the bones aren't pulled on in weird ways that then lead to the nerve being pinched. So you've mentioned some ideas here, but for people sitting here, what maybe 1 or 2 tips could they leave with to solve some of the most common challenges that you're seeing coming through Nirvana Strength over the years?
The easiest one is just come to Nirvana Strength. And one of the main things is okay, our business model is crazy. We're actually you come to the class, we teach you all the exercises. We teach you how to do everything, so you actually don't have to come back. That's kind of the business model. It's if you're actually here to help people get healthy, it's you don't create a system that requires dependency. Right? So we're actually trying to teach you how to do everything. We show you how to do everything. You can do it on your own if you like. Unfortunately, most people just don't. That speaks to other issues that might be going on. But something as simple as we have a recovery area with a really hot bath. It's 42 degrees Celsius. It's just doing the hot bath 4 times a week, for 10, 20 minutes, going to help you release some of that tension. Even small things I recommend every one of my clients get a really deep tissue massage at least once a week. Not one of those really nice soft spa massages. This one is probably gonna really it might make you cry, kind of massage, right? And again, it's usually you're just trying to deal with these tension problems, right? It's what do you want the actual result to be? Using heating creams, right? Using a heating pad. These are things that are going to help you release tension. Another quick example is I had one client, she had a nerve issue with her arm, and her physio told her to put cooling cream on, which reduces the symptom of feeling pain of the nerve issue. But I told her to put heating cream on. And because the issue is for a lot of people is that nerve problem they're having is because the tension in the muscles is actually pressing down on the nerve, and that's going to cause the numbness. Not saying that that's always going to work, but it's a very simple switch in thinking. It's I'm not trying to deal with the symptom. I'm actually why is the nerve feeling that way? It's maybe the muscles are pinching down on it, and then you just release that tension, and now the nerve pain issue is gone. And that's a really, really generalized way of thinking about things, but a lot of things are actually quite that simple. It's just, does it actually get suggested? Because a massage, recommending a massage and heating cream and a hot bath is not going to really make people much money. It's just not. Yeah.
So let's move on to Janet now. So Janet, in this frame of giving people some value that they can walk away with, so they can feel better or start that process of. But again, once we feel better, then that thing that we've done, we tend to do more of, right? Because we thought, when I do that thing, I feel better. When I don't, I feel worse. I want to feel better, right? So what in your field comes up as the things which block people? Because again, the work that you do is about how people can tap into their purpose, right? So what things, and again, we can go on forever, but we haven't got that time, but maybe the main one that comes up as that main blocker, and how or what can you give people tonight that can help them begin to rectify that?
Sure, okay. Thank you for that question, because I could talk for hours on this, but I won't. So does anyone here wake up in the morning and go, oh, another day? and you might have a feeling of self-doubt or just a general lethargy or just lack of motivation, like you just don't want to get out of bed. Does anyone ever feel like that? Yeah. And there's no shame in this.
Hold on a second. No one?
No, yeah.
Wait, are we telling the truth here? Or am I looking at the most enlightened audience that we've ever had or ever seen? All right, can we just let's just do that again?
One more time.
One more time. Be honest, people. All right.
I'm going to put my hand up.
All right.
There you
How
go.
many people have woken up suboptimal?
Yeah,
All
that's right.
There's a few. 60%.
Okay. So one of the most empowering statements I ever heard was that everything that we feel, think and do, we are actually creating. It's not actually happening to us. It's actually coming from within us. And while that might sound daunting, it's actually good news because it does mean that you can then control the outcome. But you have to know what's what's the root cause of what's creating that self-doubt and that fear. So just going back to what's wrong with what's happened in the last 50 years, this is what's happened since the Industrial Revolution, is that essentially we went from being intuitive beings to mechanical beings, and science became the solution to everything. And what we did was we handed the power to the experts, whoever they were at the time. And so what we did in the process was we disempowered ourselves. And it's interesting because the ancient Egyptians, they didn't see the brain as our core intelligence centre. They saw the heart. And that's why they were keen on preserving the heart, whereas the brain they just pull out through your nostrils when they were, mummifying someone and throw it away. And we've lost that respect for the heart. And the problem is the heart connects us to our soul. So when we don't listen to our heart, what we do is the body then gives us another clue, which is our emotions, our feelings. But if we've been taught that there's something wrong with us if we get angry or we're not supposed to be sad and cry, then we've blocked that too. So then we move up to the next layer, which is our thinking layer, the mental state, our thoughts. And 70% of our thoughts, and that's a conservative figure, are actually negative. So if we're getting our information from our thoughts, chances are we're not giving ourselves very healing messages. So then the body, if we're not listening to our thoughts, or we're driven subconsciously by our thoughts to do things that don't serve us, like eat the wrong food or, not take care of ourselves, not get enough sleep, not go to the right gym. Then we wait for a physical symptom to appear. And by then, that's really, the Titanic has seen the iceberg, but often it's too late to turn around. So that's kind of the tragic situation that we find ourselves in, that we're waiting for that position, that situation to occur, where it's physical pain. And because we've been trained to be allergic, if you like, to pain, then we go to the doctor and we say, can you give me something to kill the pain? So what I would say, a very simple one-step positive thing that you could do to start to wind back that physical clock is to get back in touch with your heart. And something very, very simple is just to do a guided heart meditation every morning. Now, I know it sounds very woo-woo and Ubudian, but really just getting back to that centre of yourself, your intuitive self, is probably the most positive single thing that you can do every morning, and making a practice of that and listen to yourself and trust that you actually know what's going on in your system. And if you start to learn to listen to that voice, that's really the first step to self-empowerment.
I just want to
Love that.
I want to say something to that because, even though it may sound a bit Ubudian, there is a lot of scientific data that shows that meditation has a huge impact on gut health and the brain connection. And so it allows the body to really open up and flow and to really accept the vitamins and things like that, and nutrients in your body. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
And while we're on that, Ubudian, by the way, if anyone here is from Ubud.
I'm from Ubud.
I knew it! I knew it! I was going to say, look, it's not meant as like a looking down upon.
I'm on the edge of Ubud. Let me put it like that.
He's moving to Changu, everybody. He's got a Changunian. Anyway, so Tracy, one thing which I think is a good time to bring it up, actually, with Health Hub Bali, again, it's the science, right? So people have asked you, so why isn't yoga represented here? Yoga is a great modality and all the rest of that. So if I ask you, why is yoga not represented here? What would you say? Or within what you do, what would you say?
If I use the word dogma, does that mean something?
Yes, yeah.
So it's like this.
What
people... Okay, when there is an issue, people don't run to yoga. They don't go to the acupuncturist or the Indian medicine. They run to the hospital in the white jackets. even the gurus. Before they were 7, that's what their mama did. So now that they're enlightened,
I just want people to get that. So Guzman, can we turn up the volume? Because I just want people to get that point. Thank you, Tracy. Please repeat that. It's very important.
All right. So the way we're explaining, say what Sequoia just said about meditation, we're talking about switching on your parasympathetic nervous system. We use breath, but it's a science of breath. Yoga does not own breath. We are born sometimes with a trauma breath. It's not switched off, and we're in a constant state of survival mode. This creates disease. We're about neutralising that to activate the person. When they come to Bali, they can have some time. We can address that in a way that they understand, in a very pragmatic way. But we get testing. We use heat mapping. We take the temperatures on the body, and the readouts from that can tell us the balance, what's happening, and we can find out what priorities there are to deal with. They may have a heavy metal issue. They may have lymphatic, and we start there. And then the real healing, yes, is in the emotional side, is in the energetic. But we want to clear the pathogens and get the body right. So great. So clear first, and then deal with the other layers, emotional, mental. Okay. Yeah. And our movement. Then we go into life medicine, the way we move, what we eat, what we choose, how the soil grows things. It's all part of whole health. Yeah.
Great, and it's part of this whole health model that you keep bringing up. And for those that can, maybe I spoke over you before, I apologise, but I just want people to hear it. So what you're saying is that, when people are sick, if there's an emergency, people run to the hospital. They run to the guys, and the men and women in white coats. Yeah. They don't necessarily run to the guru.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even the guru doesn't, because, like I said, he panics as well, and he's getting IVs with all sorts of antibiotics and that in them. So we'd like to take the fear out of these diseases, let them get stable, just understand what's happening, and then make a choice. There are other options, and what are the consequences of those choices they're making through the medical system.
Got it. Thank you. And then Sequoia, so what's coming up for you in this conversation that you feel is important to share?
When we look at the field of microbiome, I think even when we speak about the future of health, for most of you that don't really understand the fullness of what microbiome is, it's something that you see every day. You don't realize it, but it's your poop. And I call it SHIT, which is sustainable, healthy input transactions. What you put inside.
Hold on a second. We need to slow up. So, for those of you watching, he just said SHIT, right? And he gave an acronym, which I want to hear again. Slow down, breathe, and let's hear it properly, because that's amazing.
Yeah. Sustainable, healthy input transactions. What you put into your body is a transaction of what your body's going to put out and give you back. And so this is really important to look at, because I believe that the future of health is really going to be about microbiome. And a great example is fecal matter transplants. It sounds disgusting, but it's saved many people's lives. And so what that looks like is you take somebody else's fecal matter, you analyze it, you test it, and then you give it to someone else that's unhealthy, that may be struggling with arthritis, that has a slower metabolism and that wants to lose weight. And so when you look at these variables here, we start to see that the future of health may be storing even your own fecal matter for a later time in a depository, that when you need it in 20, 30 years, you can kind of re-jumpstart your gut microbiome. And so this is what I believe. This is a lot of what my team and we've been looking at for the past few years. And for the most part, when it comes to going to the doctors or the hospital, people are looking at this time variable or factor, that they don't have enough time to try to figure out what other, the best way to solve that particular issue. And one of the things, like even around nutrition, nobody wants to look at nutritional facts all the time when it comes to consuming food. It's just daunting when you walk into a store and you want to look at all of those. And so what I've been working on for the past 7 years is looking at the gut microbes. What nutrition do those specific gut microbes enjoy or like to be more optimal? And then we're working on an algorithm that when you do a microbiome analysis, anything that you can particularly scan in the store or when you go to a restaurant, you can see what percentage that matches to your microbiome genetic traits. And for me, this is what I really feel is the future of health, is saying, okay, instead of you finding food finding you, meaning the right ingredients. And that over time, your disease will be a choice. cancer will be a choice. And I truly believe that this is what the future of health looks like, especially when we have a huge issue around the amount of nutrients in the food and what's right for us. Because all of us can have 100% different microbiome than someone else. And so what's good for you may not be as great for me as it is for you, for example. And so we have to take those variables into account when it comes to race, when it comes to age, when it comes to height. All of that plays a huge factor from our ancestors and how we've acquired these microbes over thousands of years in the evolution of who we are today.
That's fascinating to me. I mean, we're going to have some questions shortly. So if you have any questions, just keep that question in your mind, and then we'll come to you. And look, we like to keep these to about an hour, but we can stay back and have a conversation. But the bit that we film will be roughly about an hour. So we've got time for a few questions in a second. But so Tracy, you know, what Sequoia just brought up, you know, about ethnicity and this epigenetic pathway back that then also determines our current level of health in many ways. Like you mentioned before about the testing and the scanning, this machine that you do. So how do you, when people come and see you, how do you rectify, recognize, and then design what happens next based upon those factors that we've just been talking about?
Okay, just to fill in, now I have to see where I'm going. What Sequoia just talked about. We can talk mental health, we can talk the structure and the way we are, but what comes first? What comes first? The diseases in these last years is epidemic, like say, autism, bipolar, all these diseases. Like I don't even believe in that. Is it just a chemistry issue? All right. So, in ancient Greece, they would have a word called dysbiosis. It meant death by gut. It starts in the gut. So, through this testing, we can check what's a priority. And many of the young ones, like on fasting and doing all this, that's what's showing up as dysbiosis. They've put their gut biome out. So this is what we're guiding people, raising that awareness, it's whole health awareness, seeing what's happening in there and that they understand this and those choices, what Sequoia's taught, we can connect them to the information at whatever level they want to take in. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Everybody keeping up? Everyone heard everything?
So,
yeah.
So then when you talk about the mental health, it's all from the gut. So we say before they say, oh, you're thinking from here, which is a little tiny part of your brain, which you can try and work everything out, you'll become very tired. The next one, we can go from our heart. The heart is very tricky. If we want something, we can justify anything, good or bad. But there's another space, and it's in this gut. If our gut can be healthy, it's a space where there's a certain kind of knowing and understanding from there. They call it the third brain now, they've found. And the enzymes there send more messages to the brain than the other way around. So for us to be stable and calm and sound in our choices, if we can get this right, can affect our whole life, our movement, our structure, everything. Because then the depression, the suicide rates that are going up, it's hung over like this. Because how are they feeling? Those messages, the hormones are coming from the gut. So it's just slowly, bit by bit, this is the journey we're talking about. Why Bali? I'm saying we've got so many retreats here. Why can't we add, there's a gap in what people are coming here. They've spent 2 weeks of precious time flying into Bali to do these retreats. Why can't we add some of this knowledge to them while they're doing their stretches or whatever, detoxes they're doing? Yeah.
Yeah, great. Just keep that there. So before we go to some questions, Ian or Janet, is there anything coming up for you that you'd like to talk about or you'd like to let go of? Get out there.
So I think that so obviously if you look at someone myself and you're like, oh, this guy must work out all the time. So one of the things is, as a business owner, is I've been trying to do my absolute best to try and figure out what is the most efficient use of my time to be able to train as minimally as possible to be able to get the same kind of results or even better for people that are training 4 or 5 hours a day. I know there's a large percentage of people, I think it's only 20% of the world population that even it goes to a gym. There's a large part of the population that doesn't like to do any exercise. They just don't like it, right? Whether it be through their own experiences or through experiences of people they know, where there's constant like yo-yoing, like there's constant like failure, and this is kind of the failure of the industry as a whole. Like there's just constant failure all the time. And so like I would generally like propose that if you just don't like doing the gym, but you want to get the benefits of what it essentially provides you, there is like a minimal of, I think, 3 times a week of 60-minute sessions each. And these would highly focus on joint and connective tissues and maintaining your range of motion, ideally preventing any possibility of injuries, or if you do get injured, to minimize those as much as possible. But essentially, the idea is to maintain and sustain and even increase your ability to perform well into your later years. And by perform, I means like maybe you just want to be able to play with your grandchildren, right? Maybe you want to be able to surf until you're like 90. Maybe you want to just like, you love playing tennis. It's like that is your performance, and that's essentially what everything's geared towards. So basically, it's just 3 times a week, an hour each, and it's really focused on shoulder mobility, on hip mobility, on joint health, and that's really what it just comes down to. So even if fitness is not your thing, the big thing for what we're trying to do is actually reach out to a lot of people that just don't like fitness in any aspect, right? And actually just show them like there is this minimal that they can do and still reap these massive benefits from doing it. You still might not like find it to be highly enjoyable, but we need to think about like what is the after effect of doing it, right? It's like, if I can help you live pain-free, it's like what is that worth, you know? If you can still perform your hobby like well into your 90s, like what is that worth, you know? Playing with your grandkids, like what is that worth? And so when we think about longevity's sake, it's like what can we do now to kind of help you reach that point?
So thank you, Ian. So Janet, is there anything you'd like to add, whatever's coming up for you at the moment?
Nothing's coming up. I'd like to hear from the audience, actually.
Good. Okay, so what we'll do, so questions, is that a question? Denise Reno, wonderful. So Sequoia, we'll take that microphone, we'll whip it around, and we'll get it into the audience, and we'll have a few questions. So we'll probably do about, I have no idea what the time is, but that's the way it is. Lucas? Beautiful. All right. So we're at the hour. Damn it. So okay. So we'll have about 10 minutes of questions that we'll film. Then after that, we'll switch off the camera, and we can have a little private discussion, which you only get if you come and watch this live. So that's how you do it. Denise.
Hi, I'm Denise. So I have a question with a little bit of a backstory. When I was a child, I was very, very sick constantly, and thank God for my beautiful mother. Instead of giving me all the scary pills that the doctors prescribed, she had this like Louise Hay book on her nightstand, and she explained to me when I was 3 years old that, you know, if this happens to your body, read this affirmation, this happens to your body. So belief is health, right? Like belief. I'm sure you guys have heard of Bruce Lipton and his lectures, and basically that we can control our genes, we can control what happens to our body. So I, as a toddler, was like trained to believe that whenever I was sick, I could solve it myself without the interference of drugs and doctors. And so when I grew up around the age of 20, I had a big health scare, and the doctors were like, we got to take your ovaries out. That's like tomorrow because it's serious. And, you know, I had my moment of panic, and then I sat on the curb and I remembered, you know, my belief systems, that my body I felt such resistance to the medical interference, to the surgery, that I thought, I think my body is telling me that I can solve this myself. And so I went to a Chinese herbalist. He gave me 6 bags of tea. I locked myself in my house for 3 weeks, and I meditated, and I basically ate like steamed broccoli every single day and eliminated all these things from my diet, and basically talked to my body. I love myself. I'm healthy. I'm grateful for being healthy. And so 3 weeks passed, and the tumor literally dissipated, dissolved, broke down. They couldn't find it. They said it was a miracle. So whenever I meet somebody who is sick, my innate reaction is, oh my God, did you know that you could heal yourself, right? But not everybody has this belief system. And I see so many people get procedures that are so invasive and cause so many side effects. And I just wish I could save them and have them like believe that they can solve it themselves. My question is to you, why do you think that in society, our power to heal ourselves, or our belief in that power, has been taken away or suppressed? Is it because of capitalism and big pharma? Is it because children need to be told at a very young age, look, this is actually an option. You can actually listen to your body and heal yourself. And what can we do to bring that ancient wisdom back to ourselves and to our bodies and have that power to heal ourselves?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, so what we do if we just turn this microphone up, this good mic, yeah. Tracy.
I don't think we need to maybe not go into why and all that. I think we all know that. But what I would say at this moment in time, it's not if something is going to happen to you. When it does, to have your resolves made now. So the time now is about raising the awareness, getting the knowledge you need, and understanding how your body works, if you want to. Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking there before was about thoughts, feelings, and emotions that drive disease. What's been in you, and that's your story. Every single human's totally different, and it's not for us to put that on somebody else. But to understand, that's where the science comes in, because the things that have mutated in our bodies currently are different than ever before as well. That's why the need of science sometimes and some testing. But it's how we view it. We want to take the fear out of that. Knowledge empowers. We get the right understanding. We create time and space by understanding also how cells work. You don't need your breast chopped off the next day. You may have 120 days for your cycle of cells to go to the next level, so you can make a choice and choose which doctor or which path you want to choose. So we want to take that fear out, empower people with knowledge, get proper testing, find out why things are happening, what else is involved, and go from there, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Body
thank
can
you.
heal, yeah.
So we have another question just in front, or a question down? No, just Lucas over here in front of you. Yeah.
Hi. Lucas, the question that I would like to ask the whole panel actually is, I noticed that there is a tendency throughout the world right now of obviously looking for the easy ways, for the easy, fast things and solutions, right? And medicine is also tending to go that way to fulfill those needs in a fast and easy way, right? So my question would be for all of you, what do you think of new technologies that are coming in the near future, such as CRISPR and, DNA sequencing and editing, and how that would change the way we solve our internal issues,
Well, to start off, I think that everything that we have in the world today is fast. We have fast food, fast fashion, fast technology. Even when we look at, social media, we can't even go 3 to 5 seconds without being entertained for our brains to be stimulated to continue watching that. And so going to the grocery store, instead of buying a pineapple, we buy the chopped up pineapples inside of there. And so it goes to show a bit of the mindset of the world today, where we are and why we need to step up certain technologies. CRISPR, for example, I think that it's quite interesting. Not when it comes to, let's just say, changing the eye color of your child or whatever, but when it comes to health in general, I think that it can solve some deeper, really big issues when it comes to someone around health that's not necessarily born with autism, but born with something much bigger that's a genetic trait. When it comes to things like the microbiome, the field that I'm in, I really see the future is that everybody's going to be trading their shit, literally. This is going to be a fecal matter trade where again, it's like you look at the indicators of someone that's really healthy. You store that fecal matter that's based on the food that they've eaten, the diet that they had before, and then someone that's going to need it in the future, be that a child, be that some older individual that may need it in an emergency, then someone like yourself or anybody else in the room will be able to trade that and like offer that to them, to the highest bidder, for example, just like a real market. And so I see that there's a lot of things around health and that I can speak on that will be something that probably will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, or fecal matter trades.
One small comment, especially for you. I saw in a documentary, and it blew my mind, that in London, right, in the river, they did some research and they started to notice that the fecal matter that we dump from our toilets is affecting the fish and the life in the river. And they started to discover, for example, traces of cocaine and all the drugs that we consume in the fish. And that's staying in the river with the fish, and it's not just affecting us.
100%.
So it's crazy.
It's a circular system that, like, what goes out of us is going somewhere else, and then it's going back into the planet, and we're getting it back again. Same when it comes to all the medications that we're consuming. That's going back into the environment, and we're consuming that over and over again. And so this is something that really can only be solved with new technologies, in my opinion, that's going to be quite fast for people in emergency situations to feel safe, to feel healthy. And that's overall what it's about, is making sure that people feel safe and have an immediate outcome as soon as they can.
And I think there's like a lot of modern technologies that are really beneficial. I think the research done around like stem cells and plasma treatment, and also even like maybe more recently, people might have heard of like peptide therapy. Peptide therapy is really based off of like kind of naturally occurring amino acids in the body, and the idea of it is, I'm a high proponent for using modern technologies that help assist and facilitate and support the body to behave optimally or even greater, as opposed to using it as the primary source to have your body do something that is not natural to it. And so like good example would be like just using steroids, right? It's like you're forcing your body to behave in a certain way that is not natural, whereas you could take like a peptide or something like that along those lines, maybe a supplement, whatever, that's going to help you balance out your hormones better, maybe fix some erectile dysfunction problems you might have, like, because there's a lot of issues, negative things that come from all the modern technology that we're exposed to. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense to then try to like not use anything to try and combat that. It's like we need a little bit of assistance. Like otherwise, it's like, I mean, honestly, at some point it's going to just be a really hard battle to fight if you're not using some of the kind of positive modern technologies that we have to help kind of combat all this. Like look at all these lights that are like shining on me right now. It's like, it's like, at some point, like we got to help like assist and facilitate the circadian rhythm better. It's like if you live in a big city, it's like you're kind of screwed. What can you do to kind of help facilitate that better? Right, you get blackout lights, you get blue light glasses, whatever. So I think there's definitely some positives there. You just got to figure out how does it support you better, as opposed to, yeah.
So we'll take Janet, and then after that, what we'll do is that we'll have closing comment from you, Tracy, perhaps, and then we'll wrap the live, but we'll stay back and answer questions. Okay? So over to you, Janet.
Yeah. I think this is a really, as they say, the darkest hours before the dawn, and I think this is a really exciting time to be alive, because I totally agree. The technology that's out there is amazing, but if it's in the wrong hands, or if we just treat it as a silver bullet, we're going to be committing the same problem that we've committed over the last 50 years. So the key, I feel, is to have some good old-fashioned self-awareness. So to actually understand, what is it that makes me tick? What is it that makes me eat too much in the first place? Because it's not just the bad food, it's the fact that we're eating too much of it. So I believe that in partnership with the new technologies, that we understand ourselves, and the way I see it, there are 4 essential things that we need to know about ourselves. We need to know what is our core need. So rather than thinking that it's something out there that we have to acquire, a thing, what does the inner self actually yearn for? What is that? Maybe it's peace, love, joy, companionship, but to get clear on that. And then when we know that, to also find out, well, why don't I have it? What's lacking in me? And that brings us to our core fear. We need to know, what is it essentially that I'm afraid of that's creating all this self-sabotaging behaviour? And then what is the thing that creates the fear, the core destructive belief? There's one belief that sits at the bottom of all the others that creates our self-sabotaging behaviour, believe it or not, which is great news, because when you've revealed that, you've found your own personal Rosetta Stone. And then the final thing, when you understand who you are not, you can start to tap into who you are. Who is the true me? Who is the true self? Why don't I ask that self for advice and information and guidance and decision making? If I can tap into my intuitive self, if you can do that, then you'll make the decisions and you'll use technology from a place of wisdom rather than neediness.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. And look, so almost, yeah, there you go. And I echo your sentiments there. So what we'll do, as I mentioned before, I'd like to keep this to about an hour. Obviously, it's a little bit more challenging with 5 people, but I think we've done pretty well. So in a minute, Tracy, I'll get some closing comments from yourself. Then I'll introduce what will happen in the next one, which again, this is a 3-part series. Today was all about, where are we at currently and what has caused that from different viewpoints or base points of health. Each expert up here has a different view, a different filter onto the same topic. And what Health Hub Bali is about how do we connect all of these breadcrumbs together to create the best treatment plans for the people which are appropriate to that person. So Tracy, is there anything else which is coming up for you at the moment?
Yeah, just a couple of things, what Health Hub is. Yeah. Like, it's a platform to connect people to better health. But why here in Bali? I'm saying we can have conversations here in Bali we cannot have in London, New York, Sydney or anywhere else. The minute you fly in here, the idea is to bring this knowledge together and have conversations that really matter. All right, that's number one. So the other parts of it is, Health Hub is about the personal. It's about the gut, the structure and everything else. But it's a triage. If there's an emergency, where do you go to? So the idea is that you're able to be connected to what you need. With health coaches, you've got a menu down the side. You take your power back. It's your health. With experts, and we're using science. The other part is an R&D, research and development. There are universities that are being set up here in Indonesia that are open. They want to learn, they want to study. We have people here from all over the world. We can bring ones like Sequoia. We've got doctors here. They've already reversed 100 cases of Alzheimer's in America. One of the partners in that research, he was living here in Bali. So we can bring all these ones together. We can start curating these type of journeys, sharing that knowledge. The other part is health tourism. We have places, we've got hotels, we can create a model where people can already start tasting that, and the next step is life centres where they can have habits from the time they wake up. I say there's 126 fundamentals that mama should have taught them, like whether it be oil pulling or, dry skin brushing, rebound, just to keep the body flowing and moving. They can learn that on their stays here and have support following up after that. The third part of this is if someone does have a diagnosis, wherever they are, telemedicine is big now. We can connect them to the right testing and whatever our practitioners can support them so their body can heal, reset and restore. Is that it? There's one more really important. We are in Bali. We spent the last 5 months with Balinese. A big layer of this is Bali, Pure Bali, and putting the science behind USADA. The next part is we are in Indonesia. Indonesia has got a constitution in their law that I haven't seen anywhere else that allows for integrative medicine. We have an integrative hospital in Java, a hospital that has got everything German clinics would have, but they're only clinics. This is a hospital for the last 20 or 30 years. We've got the research there that we can publish in Lancet, whatever. We can give that. So we have got a country where we can do this work and explore health on a real level. The next, like I already said, we've got the expats here, and we've also got the doctors and scientists who are super keen to come here for events. And that's what we plan. Before COVID, we already started the Explore Health series with here in Tropical Nomad. And both Ian and Janet, they facilitated that event. And we had probably 16 doctors and experts here. That was the first one. And within months, we had COVID hit. The plan back then was every 3 months we have an Explore Health series, and once a year have a like an event and leading up to a global event. So we will continue that.
Yeah, and look, before I wrap up, firstly, this was put together with Tracy, Health Hub Bali, and myself, SpeakuP Monday. But I just want to acknowledge Ian, Janet, Sequoia for being here, and I would love just quickly if you let people know where they can find you, because I think it's fair. You've given your time today to support Health Hub Bali, support Tracy, but it's also about supporting you. So I'll give you the microphone. So just give me, tell them how to find you. Maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds each. There you go.
Again, I'm co-founder of Nirvana Strength. So if you'd like to reach Nirvana, Nirvana Strength's the place to go. And then you can always find us website, Nirvana Strength, Bali, Instagram, Nirvana Strength, or my own personal Stoic Mobility on Instagram.
You can find me at my website, janethogan.com, or you can email me direct, janet@janethogan.com.
Wonderful. And then Sequoia, where can I find you?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm in the middle of rebranding everything for microbiome analysis here in Indonesia. So when that's up, you will find all the information at Sequoia LDV. Sequoia like the tree. LDV, Sequoia Ladelveles.
Wonderful. And where can we find Health Hub Bali? I know that the website is being updated, maintenance, but where can they find Health Hub Bali?
The easiest one is probably Instagram at the moment. Yeah.
Cool. So Instagram, Health Hub Bali. Easy one there. Easy one. So this time I am going to read it from my phone, in case you're wondering. He's reading from his phone. Yes, I know. So look. Basically, as I mentioned before, today was all about bringing us up to date with where we are and why, from different perspectives, onto the same thing, the human body, us, right? Those different factors. And hopefully what we've done is that we've given you some food for thought as to what you can take away from this immediately and start to have some kind of result. Because remember, when we start to feel good, you do more of it, right? If you feel bad, you stop doing it. Or do you? But anyway, the idea is you feel better, you do more of it, right? Great to see you, James. So next week or next month, what we get on to is whole health, radical well-being, and how West meets East in Bali that we've kind of alluded to on this particular session. And we talk about the science behind transformation, understanding the integral parts of healing and why baselines matter. We're going to talk about assessment, education, treatments that Tracy touched upon. And also, we've kind of gone into a little bit of why Bali is perfect for this. And as Tracy mentioned, if you didn't catch that, for the only place that she's known on the world, on the planet, is Indonesia, is the only place that you can have legally an integrative hospital, not a clinic, where literally West meets East, which is phenomenal. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. Remember, come every Monday in person, 6 p.m. There's a great studio audience here. We get up to, I think the other week we had 50 people or something, but it's a really great experience because right now we're going to go switch off the camera and we're going to go into more of a personal session if people want that. And so that's what you get by coming. You meet the people, you get to get the story behind the story. I'm pretty sure these guys over here are going to have people coming to them for work in some way, shape, or form because they're exceptional human beings. So until next week, thanks to Tropical Nomad, Itchy, Guzman, the team, a second camera, and new guy Bobby, thank you very much indeed. Lots of love to you all. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Round of applause for these wonderful people here. Thank you.